Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome. Live streaming right now on Substack and YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison Substack or YouTube so we can stay connected when you arrive at your destination. You can also easily find us at kpfk.net to watch. That's kpfk.net. Also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at caryharrison.com, C-A-R-Y. There you're going to get a transcript of the entire show, plus access to clips and stuff that we cannot do on the radio. Newsletter at caryharrison.com. An interesting call from Ray earlier because it kind of shows where we all are right now. Connection. That's what we all crave and need. The harder it gets, the more connection we need. You know, we used to say during the good times, oh, so-and-so just needs a hug. Now I need one like 23 hours of the day. And connection. So I'm going to put together some webinars, and I've talked about this in the past, but really, I just keep hearing more and more of this on how to find the person that's looking for you, how to get deeper connection, how to survive, all of this stuff. And we'll do those as online things because they're kind of a little hard to do on the radio. We could do something like that. Maybe we can present some of the people giving them, but they'll be there so you can like do it at your leisure. So that's going to come up, and you can, let's just say I'll post that online so you'll be able to find it. Well, you don't need me to tell you that civilization's doing just fine. As I said, everyone's calm. We're all rational. We're in perfect mental health. The news is a soothing balm. Social media, a utopia of kindness. And the modern diet, packed with more chemicals than a science lab, is definitely not rewiring our brains for permanent hysteria. Yeah, it's all going as the founding fathers had intended, isn't it? Not to mention that many of the services that people rely on to ensure a safer food supply, like the FDA, is going to be cut by 3,500 employees, the CDC by 2,400 employees, the National Institutes of Health by at least 1,200, and Medicare by at least 300, all being rebuilt by Bobby Kennedy into a new agency, which, as we know, is called MAHA. Or AHA, the Administration for Healthy America. Meanwhile, regular people don't seem calmed by all of this soothing, governmentally given emollient of downsizing and comedy rebranding. There's depression. There's general existential dread by absolutely everybody listening and watching right now. Our lives have become more common than the madness out of DC as far as anxiety. People are unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. The world, as usual, is happy to pour gasoline on this fire. We're stressed. We're exhausted. We're about 2 breaking news alerts away from spontaneous combustion. But fear not. We have the man who just might have the antidote to our collective breakdown. Dr. Christopher Macklin. He's a medical intuitive, an energy healer, and a man who probably sleeps better than the rest of us because he's dedicated his life to rebalancing minds, to bodies, to spirits. And he's here to talk about detoxing, not just the juice cleanse nonsense, which may or may not be nonsense, but the kind that clears out the stress, the fear, the dysfunction that modern life has so graciously gifted you and me. He's also got a thing or two to say about the toxic mess we call a lifestyle and how we might, against all odds, crawl back toward sanity. Dr. Christopher Macklin, I want to welcome you to the show.
Cary, thanks for having me on. Bless your heart. It's great to be here.
It's good to see you, my friend. We keep hearing that stress is normal these days. Why, it's normal reaction. At what point does normal turn into unhinged?
I think any stress, if you've got any stress at all, it affects the body in such a profound way that I think, you have to really review your lifestyle and review probably people around you and get into a place where you're tranquil, you're surrendered, and you just feel amazing, with people who really understand you. And I think that's really important, like the lady before, she's talking about people pleasers. Well, yeah, the day of people pleasing is over. It's not that you're rude to people, it's just you've got to set boundaries, and I think it's very important to set boundaries.
I just a parenthetical note. I haven't even given out the phone numbers, and people are calling in, which is awesome. I'm going to give them out. 818-985-KPFK. Those are your Harrison hotlines. 818-985-5735. 818-985-KPFK. Dr. Christopher Macklin, You talk a lot about anxiety and depression, burnout, pick your poison. Are these modern ailments that we're all suddenly experiencing, or have we just perfected the art of self-destruction at this point?
I think I think the whole of society has been introduced to a new system after 2019, and they said nothing will be the same again. And I think what it's done is it's created bifurcation. It's created stress on people in families. It's bifurcation in families. A lot of people have been affected by this, and of course, the other thing is with the pandemic or whatever you want to call it, people were out of work and they didn't get paid, and I think it's all accumulated. I mean, there's different types of people on this planet. There's people the starseed people, and then there's people who just come here to experience the planet and grow. And I think for the starseed people, they feel it worse than actually the average person in the street, because they're empaths and they ingest a ton of emotion. So it's interesting.
It's interesting. It is interesting, Dr. Christopher Macklin, because I was saying in the very beginning of the show that I've been able to cover news and topics for years without being, profoundly affected. I thought, well, I must be a sociopath if I'm not just vomiting at every news story. But there's something about what's happening right now to all of us, to the entire planet, it's hard to be objective and hold one arm away and pretend it's just a bad Netflix series. We've all been cast as the lead characters now. So what are we?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I asked God a couple of weeks ago, I said, look, this is a bad movie we're in. I want a refund. And this, like you said, well, you're extras, so you don't get paid for it. You're in the movie, so okay. But I think it's a bad movie, and I think there's so much transition happening now. Things have gone so south with cabal and all these things that I think it's really affecting people, especially energetically. The energy on this planet at the moment is really bad. It feels like the Twilight Zone. One of these movies are da da da, and then nothing happens. And we keep promising something's going to change. But all this emotion, of course, affects your mental health in ways, for example, neurochemical balance. It affects the adrenals that produce serotonin. It affects the glands in the brain that produce GABA, dopamine, melatonin, and the rest of it. So what happens is you end up with mental health issues. I mean, I work on about 2,000 people a week, general groups, specialized groups, one-to-ones. And I'm seeing people are really, really struggling right now to just keep themselves balanced, So to me, it's important to take a step back. The way I actually navigate this planet is be in your bubble. We have this house we built on 40 acres of woods. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's with nature. And I feel really tranquil I'm here. And I think it's really important to go back to things you really enjoy, like nature. Get people around you who really love you, who aren't going to berate you. My father's berated me all my life, and I put a stop to it, eventually, and said, this has got to stop, because I'm not a people pleaser, but I won't be rude to him, of course. You just set boundaries, say, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines, because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a continuous glucose monitor allows you to fully take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you take insulin, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call Veramed Health now.
Call 855-996-9708. 855-996-9708. Call 855-996-9708. Call now.
Coming up in a sec, we're going to talk to Harold in Santa Barbara. We're going to go to Glendale, say hello to G. Right now, we're talking to Dr. Christopher Macklin, who works with thousands of clients a month internationally. He addresses a spectrum of physical, mental, and emotional issues, perfectly poised for today's world, and has founded the Global Enlightenment Project to support the healing needs of people during these difficult times. You can learn more at globalenlightenmentproject.com. And Dr. Christopher Macklin, if you had to pinpoint the biggest villain in modern mental health, processed food, social media, or the 24-hour news cycle, who's getting the blame here?
I think it's probably all equal. I mean, the processed food, it's got all sorts of... We had salmon last night, and I was joking with my wife. I said, have you marinated it in mercury? And oh, I think that's been done already, so don't worry about that. But it's true, and also chemicals in the air, spraying in the air. That's actually stopped lately. I think they've put a stop to it. So the air's contaminated. The food is contaminated. Even toilet roll, everything is contaminated. And you think, wow, how did it get this bad? And the answer is because, there's definitely a force, call it the cabal, whatever you want, who doesn't want us to thrive, who wants to poison us. Look at fluoride. I mean, fluoride's highly toxic. Why would you put it in people's water? And the answer is, what it does is it breaks down the crystalline structure of the teeth. So everyone's teeth are rotting. Look at the nanotech. Look at all the things. It's incredible. So I think they're equal, but I think also the news has been kind of a lot of misinformation, and I think that's not really helped either. So people don't know what weighs up at the moment. I mean, it's a profound time, I think, in this planet.
It is, and fluoride has become a thing again. It was in the 1950s. It has been every decade. Certainly, fluoride, sodium fluoroacetate, whatever it comes from, whether it's the side effect of making aluminum, small amounts applied directly to the tooth does have an ameliorative effect on the enamel of the tooth. But guzzling it also affects your organs. So it's kind of a trade-off. And I've always been curious to know why a government that won't feed you or do anything for you is obsessed about the teeth of children. Teeth. Like, we're not going to spend a cent on homelessness or veterans or anything, but teeth of children. We're not going to give you dental insurance, by the way, or even optical, help. That's not included
Absolutely.
either. But the teeth of the kids of people we've never, spare no expense. So, critical thinking is not really invited here, which leads to the next question. What's the strangest, most absurd reason someone has ever given you for their chronic stress?
I would say, well, it's absurd. I'd say probably the worst is what I call Illuminati fallout children, where they've been abused from the age of 3 and things like that, and it breaks the soul. And, I've worked with some of these people to get them back rebalanced so they can actually go out in society and get a proper job. Yeah, so, there's been many, many different reasons, but I think that's the one that really springs to mind because this child abuse and that is so rife all over the world. It's just unbelievable. And, when you listen to these stories, it brings you to tears. I don't ever tell the clients, but you've got tears rolling down your face as you go and you're reliving all the abuse they've had from the age of 3 up to 18. And it's terrible, really terrible.
Let's go to the phone. Say hello to Harold in Santa Barbara. Welcome to the show. Hello, Harold.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I do. Go ahead, please.
Oh, yes. My question is, Robert F. Kennedy got what he wants, but what are we getting from him? For example, who runs the Kennedy Foundation? I mean, the poor guy is still going to be just a shadow. He is. Anyway, that's my question. What are we getting? I mean, what is he doing?
Well, if we had that answer, but I guess Dr. Macklin, Dr. Christopher Macklin, can probably offer the workarounds that are needed for you and me to survive this lack of care.
Absolutely. I think Robert F. Kennedy, I think he's actually starting to look into autism, which is a huge thing. It used to be 1 in 10,000 20 years ago, autistic kids. Now it's 1 in 36. Actually, not 36 this year, 1 in 33. So there's something wrong with this picture. Why are all these kids going autistic? I mean, I know why, because I deal with them all the time. I adopted my wife's daughter. She's fully nonverbal autistic. And it's brain damage, but the good thing about it is he's promised that he's doing worldwide investigations using, peer-reviewed documents, and by September he'll have an answer. So he's doing some good things,
Yeah, there has always been an issue with putting mercury in medicines. Mercury is really his big one. He suffers from dysphonia, which is why he sounds like this, attributed through his own voice at one point to game fishing, eating too many sailfish and stuff off of Cape Cod. Whether that's true or not, certainly having mercury applied to any part of the human body, it is toxic. So this is why a lot of us, when we're getting flu vaccines and such, ask for the vaccine minus the adjuvant, which is mercury. It's a preservative. It's put in as a preservative, period. And you can now get these things without that. So at least the mindfulness is happening there. We saw, or some of modern historians now are looking at the fall of the Roman Empire as being directly related to the amount of lead they put in the aqueducts, the Romans being the first ever to connect whole parts of Europe by aqueducts and letting water flow back and forth, but the water would seep into the masonry. So they started to line the masonry of the aqueducts with miles and miles and miles of lead. Well, guess what's going to happen when you're drinking that water, right?
I can't imagine. You're going to get poisoned. Yeah, absolutely. And they still had old lead pipes. I mean, in England, they've got still a lot of old lead pipes. And, we've been drinking that water all the time. The thing is about mercury, it builds up in the body, and it doesn't really discharge itself. So, I mean, to me, it's very important to detox your body as much as you can with supplements. But I think also detox it with the stress and anxiety you've got with him, because, what's the primary cause of cancer? In my book, it's emotion. It bleeds into somewhere, and if you've got pathogens and things like that, mutates the cells, turn into tumours. But the primary cause of most illnesses is emotion. And who hasn't got anxiety in this world? I think that would probably be everybody, almost everybody. I mean, I live a tranquil life. I love what I do. And I think, the biggest thing I can say to people, because you were talking about what's the biggest success before. I think to me, the biggest success, I've been in aeronautics in the past. I earned a ton of money, didn't enjoy it at all. And I remember going to a lady, she did a reading on me. She said, well, this was 20 years ago. You're gonna go to America. Okay. You're going to live off donations and you're going to work for God doing healings. What? Oh, here we are, So surrender to me and gratitude is the keys, I think, to this life. If you're really grateful for what you do have instead of worrying about what you don't. I've been times 21 days without food, lived out of a car, different things. And I'm just so grateful each day to have a plate of food. It's just, if you've got a roof over your head, you've got a car, you're doing amazing, because so many people don't. So I think it's getting back to that gratitude, of what you do have.
Key thing. That's certainly in all the recovery programs. Gratitude is number one. You sort of are the way you think. Self-talk guides the way you think. And then you make decisions based on your self-talk. I'm an idiot. I'm a failure, whatever. And then you make choices and decisions based on somebody that you think is an idiot and a failure. It doesn't mean you go the opposite into a narcissist, but there's somewhere in the middle that has to be captured. And I think that's part of your expertise. As we talk to Dr. Christopher Macklin, working with thousands of clients a month internationally, addressing a spectrum of physical, mental, and emotional issues, has founded the Global Enlightenment Project to support the healing needs of people during these difficult times. And Dr. Christopher Macklin, you say that people need to take back their power. What's the first thing that we should reclaim?
I think it's about releasing emotion and, doing some spiritual practice like meditation. Come on the healing sessions. We do 2 a week. It's by donation. If you have no money, please come on them. We could actually release 81. On the general group, we do 27 releases of emotion. It's a lot, because if you go to a practitioner like a psychotherapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, they're going to poke at you, bawl your eyes out. Takes an hour, poke at you again, bawl your eyes out. How many layers can they get through? Probably 4, 5, 6. So we have a fast track method of releasing emotion, which means as you release it, your vibration starts to go up and you feel like powerful. Wow. The whole point about it is to be really happy with yourself. So you're a good person, you've got a higher vibration, and set boundaries so that you don't get contaminated by other people's, what do you call it, vampiric energy. It's really important.
Let's go to the phones again at 818-985-KPFK. Those are your Harrison hotlines, 818-985-5735. Say hello to Henrid, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, in Mid-Wilshire. Henrid, you're on the air.
It's Henrik with a K, but irrelevant. You guys were talking about autism, and I wanted to say the word glyphosate. It's everywhere in everything, and I believe strongly that that's the reason for Parkinson's and autism. It's in Similac, which is fed to all the babies. You guys ought to talk about it. You guys ought to investigate it.
Thank you. Excellent call. Thank you, Henrik. Dr. Macklin, yes, glyphosates. We're all increasingly more aware on a daily basis now.
Absolutely. And don't forget, the vaccines don't just have things like mercury, but they've also got aluminum and different other heavy metals in them. And to me, that's one of the biggest causes of autism, and glyphosate as well. So they're actually targeting kids in everything, so it's a real problem.
How do we navigate the food system? We've just been told that the FDA and other government organizations, which have been evolving since the Nixon administration, who is now Richard M. Nixon, is now looking like a statesman in the rearview mirror. But the idea of actually surveying and cherry picking things that imperfectly, but at least making superficial attempts to remove really bad things from the food supply, that's going bye-bye. We're back at the self-serve pump. It's not like we're all farmers and we can go out and pick our own broccoli. How do we navigate an even more complicated food supply?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think at the moment it's contaminated. I think if you can grow your own food, grow it. But of course, not everyone can. But the power of maps of intent, as I like to call them, we have a map of intent. And, it's a prayer, but a map of intent for food. And it blesses the souls of the animals and plants, removes any particles that are not godlike. And by goodness, it works. I remember going out to a conference, and I went to Walmart and I got a load of strawberries, and they were sour as anything. So I chopped them in half. Same batch. Half of them were in one plate A and half of them were the other. So I did this map of intent over, and it's on the website. Try it, you'll see. So I did this prayer over these strawberries, and I handed them out. I said, "Okay, let's hand A out, which are the sour ones." I said, "Oh, this is terrible." I said, "Yeah, they're from Walmart." I said, "Try these." So I sent them out. Oh my goodness, they taste like real strawberries. I said, "Well, that's interesting because they're both the same batch from the same company." And so it does work. You have the power in your mind, using maps of intent or whatever you want, your energy, to revibrate things. And I think that's really important,
Let's finish, Dr. Christopher Macklin, with what you say about how we've forgotten what a healthy life even looks like nowadays. What would be the first step in remembering?
Well, I always remember, I think you should look back to a time when you felt tranquil, when you felt joy. When I was a kid, I saw all sorts of things and I had lots of gifts, but I was childlike, and I used to look at the blue sky, no chemtrails, everything else. And I thought, what a beautiful planet this is. And I think you really need to look back when you felt joy and get that joy back. Now it's very difficult because we're at extreme times, but I always tell my clients, find one thing that is going to excite you today. Like if it's cooking a beautiful meal, if it's doing a spiritual practice, if it's planting your own food, if it's walking in the woods, whatever excites you, get back to that, because I think I'm seeing a lot of people, thousands of people being very apathetic. They just don't want to do anything because they're spent, because they're waiting for this to transition. But I think, meantime, let's not waste a day. We're on this planet for a blip. And I think it's so important to enjoy every single day, doing something you really enjoy, if it's painting, whatever it is.
Thank you so much for that. And apologies to everyone else who's on the phone. We've got G in Glendale, Carlos in Carson. We have Jennifer. We have Tamika. We have a bunch more. I'm sorry I didn't get to you. I'm going to figure out a way to be able to keep streaming down the road, so when we end the radio broadcast, we can continue and talk to more people. Let me invent that technology, and it will be upcoming. I want to thank you, Dr. Christopher Macklin, for joining us today. And thank you for healing people, because boy, do we need it. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, my friend. Dr. Christopher Macklin works with thousands of clients a month internationally, addressing a spectrum of physical, mental, emotional issues. Founded the Global Enlightenment Project to support the healing needs of people during these difficult times. You can learn more at the globalenlightenmentproject.com. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter, and you're going to get a copy of this, transcripts, everything else at caryharrison.com. And also, I want to thank the great, thunderously great Renee Yawarski, who is our director. She is fabulous. Also, Gary Baca, the great, also at KPFK in the control room. And you, most importantly, you and me, the listener, we are the communal audience. And together, we're going to find ways to work around this and get strong together and have each other's back. That's my mission here, and it always will be. And I totally look forward to seeing you next week.